From MMA Island. Christopher de Santiago of MMA Island. Today I'm talking to the undefeated Lucas Rosa, who returns this weekend at Combat FC on Friday the 13th. Lucas, how's it going today, man?
It's going great. I had a really good week of training. I'm really deep in my fight camp and I'm just wicked excited. This is like finally, all the preparation is going to pay off and this week. So,
Yeah, awesome, man. How do you feel about fighting on Friday the 13th? Anything spooky about this fight camp?
I mean, I've always been like, my whole theme is like King of Monsters and, like horror and that sort of thing. So I've always been pretty big with like, liking Halloween and liking those sorts of days. Like I remember my athlete number actually used to be like 13. It was 7 or 13 based on like, I was a rugby captain and those were usually the numbers I was at. So, yeah, I like Friday the 13th. It's actually my third time fighting on Friday the 13th, and I've won the previous two. So for me, it's been good luck, I guess. So my grandfather always said, "You make your own luck." So that's what I try to live by.
Awesome, and your grandfather was a fighter as well, right? Like a boxer?
Yeah, yeah, he was a champion Navy boxer. Yep, Dominic Rosa. Yeah,
Awesome, man. Keeping in the family. I love it.
yeah.
I guess before we get into the next fight, I guess was fighting something that you always thought you were going to be doing, like to carry on the family legacy?
I mean, to me, I kind of approached it a lot differently than a lot of other people. I originally was more of like one of the academics in my family. Like the rest of my family wasn't quite as much like that. But like I majored in like philosophy and creative writing and went to college for it and was like a member of all these academic honor societies there and the head of the school newspaper. So I was like a lot more academic, but I always loved MMA because it was such a pursuit of knowledge and I feel like it challenged me in ways more than like any other sport did. It kind of like I felt like brought out my best virtues. And so I always had a really hard time explaining like these two different things to other people because they didn't really see it as very consistent with each other. They kind of saw it as like a walking contradiction. Like my professors would always ask me like, "What is this MMA thing you're doing? Like wanting to fight in a cage?" And my brother meanwhile would be like, "Well, I don't really know any of the papers your professors have written." So like, it's just kind of like always that sort of juxtaposition. And so I ended up getting something called a Watson Fellowship, which is like a very rare academic grant they give out to 40 people in the country every year, like very, very rare. And mine was on looking at mixed martial arts from a philosophical perspective. So, as far as I'm aware, I'm the only person to ever get an academic grant for an MMA project. And so, I kind of bring like more of an intellectual, strategic side to the whole MMA fight game. And yeah, to me, it was always like a pursuit of knowledge first and foremost, but I also felt like it brought out some of my best like natural talents, which was, you know, or skills rather, like which was like mental toughness and courage and the things that, my Rosa family and my the Lucas side of my family both kind of instilled in me, like my dad and my siblings.
That's awesome, man. And don't you have a journalism degree as well, or something like that?
Yeah, no. So I was the editor in chief of both my high school and my college newspapers. I actually ended up doing an
Nice.
investigative report on my whole like college's investments, and it caused protests at the school, and I got in a lot of trouble. But luckily, by that point, I had the Watson Fellowship secured, so they couldn't get too mad at me. But yeah, it was yeah, no, I was really into journalism as well. But yeah, my majors was actually philosophy and creative writing.
That's awesome, man. So like I guess with this training camp, outside of training and stuff, like I guess do you do like a lot of reading, a lot of philosophy work when you're not training?
It's tough, like I think one of the things about MMA is it requires you to be so fully committed that I'm just obsessed with MMA right now. Like as much as I love, the academic side that I used to have, like I don't quite indulge in it as quite as much as I used to, just because I feel like MMA to me gets at that sort of creative muscle the same way that like doing writing used to. So To me, it's that same sort of catharsis. And so I mean, I train pretty much obsessively every day. It's like all I think about, like trying to, whether it's trying to book the next fight, whether it's trying to come up with like fight shirts, whether it's, like reaching out to fans or, even like trying to be more creative on the social media stuff. Like, I feel like, right now, like this is my sole focus and my sole calling in life. But I'm sure I'll come back to like more writing once I'm sort of through with this in like a couple decades or something.
Mm, awesome, man. And you're 6-0 trying to improve to 7-0 against Anthony Vasta. What can you tell me about this upcoming fight and I guess where you're at right now in your career?
Yeah, so I know, Vasta's a tough challenge. He's probably my toughest opponent to date. And in terms of pro fights, I was the top amateur in the country and had a lot of tough fights leading into, becoming that. But as far as being a pro, I've only been a pro for a year, and this is my seventh pro fight in that year span. And hopefully it'll be my seventh first round finish. As they've all been pretty much under 2 minutes, all my fights. But he presents a pretty interesting challenge just because, he's a very unpredictable style of fighter. And on top of that, he's like 6'2" or 6'3" even maybe in the featherweight weight class, which is, I think, very unusual, like a different kind of body type. And, that's one of the things I like in a way about MMA is because it presents so many different challenges. You're always going up in different disciplines, different people with different body types, and it's to me, I always compare it to like different, kaiju or Godzilla monsters fighting each other. It's kind of these two different like monsters battling, and you get to see, which one comes out on top. And yeah.
What's your favorite monster?
My favorite, I don't know. I mean, I have to say, I really used to like Hedorah and Anguirus. But I'd say my favorite when I was a kid was probably like Orga, which is this, 2000s Godzilla kind of monster. Yeah.
Nice, man, nice. I guess with this next fight, what's going to be your walkout song?
I like this song "Night Call" by Kavinsky. I feel like it just gives this sort of like, very, transcendent like aura to the whole walkout, and it also gives it kind of like a spookier vibe to the whole thing. So yeah, I think it's used as I never saw the movie, but it's except like until more recently. But I guess it's always been used as the intro to this movie Drive, which is like one of the most famous movie openings in cinema history. So.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Then I guess how would you describe your fighting style?
I would describe it as vicious, like it's very unique. I take elements of like ancient martial arts like Bokatao, that I think nobody else knows about and use those. And then on top of that, I add in like some of the best training I feel like in the world. I get UFC level training at a gym that I feel like pays really good attention to me. Like my coach is Charles Chainsaw McCarthy, has like, some of the most violent jujitsu you'll ever see. Matt Waggy, great MMA coach, and some of the most unique takedown and grappling you'll ever see. And then of course, my older brother Charles, a great coach as well as like giving me the concepts that it takes to have good strategy within MMA fights. And I also go to MMA Science sometimes and learn from Roger Kral, who popularized the calf kick and stab kick and some of these. He's always ahead of the game with strategy. So just all the coaches at American Combat Gym and MMA Science, I think, really give me a leg up.
Hmm. Do you have like a certain prediction for this fight, or or even before fights, are you much of a predictions guy, or like how do you envision this fight playing out?
I mean, it's tough. Before my fights, I try not to like think of. I try to hope for certain things and see where the fight takes me. I think anyone who tries to predict or force too much is not really understanding the puzzle that is like a fight. But I'd like to finish this fight, like within the first two rounds. Preferably the first round, but yeah, I'm looking to finish this guy. I don't. Uh, my finishing mechanics and the way I fight is not just to go in there and point fight. I'm going in there to annihilate the opponent.
Mm. And your brother Charles, I believe he fought like 13 times in the UFC. I feel like with the implications of a win here, you're 7-0, there's a name behind you. do you feel like you might be ready for that UFC call up, or do you want to kind of get more experience on the regional scene first?
I'm gonna see, what my coaches think. For me, like I always want to, take things to that next level, but I also understand there is, patience is a virtue, which is something I've never been very good at. So, to me, I'm just looking to, build and build and build as much as I can. And I think, all I know is that when the time comes, I'll be ready. And I think that time is coming very soon. I'd say it's within a year, but if it happens sooner than that, I'll be, forever grateful.
Last August, you and your brother Charles shared a card at Foxwoods Resorts and Casino. How was that night like for you guys, and how did you guys celebrate afterwards?
Yeah, I mean that was one of the coolest nights ever. I was just It was really something special. Like I remember even being in the back and they had this big simulcast of the crowd, and I just remember seeing all these people with these, big Team Rosa shirts sitting in the seats and the whole rows taken up, and there was something really special about that. Of course, it was nerve-wracking after my win to have see Charles fight, but we both fortunately won in the first round, so it was like a really, really really special night. And to be able to share the cage with him while he got his belt and everything was just epic. And yeah, I mean, one of the funnier anecdotes I've ever had in my fight too is I'm not very much of a party person and that sort of thing. But they said, hey, go to the Shrine nightclub. It's like they have a Rosa after party for you guys. All your cousins are there, and so I don't really go to clubs, and so I went over to the place, and they told me you can't come in like this because I still had my hand wraps on and I still had sandals on, and they're like, you got to go back and put shoes on and take those hand wraps off. And after, it was just funny that I got kicked out of my own after party in a way. So I mean, I think that was pretty funny. And then the other thing is we just, I always have a tradition of eating, like, cheeseburgers right after my win. And my brother always said, it's cheeseburgers for the champ. So we always eat those. And grossly, I eat them with the hand wraps on, but I don't know. It's just a superstition thing I have. So,
Nice, man. And
yeah.
Charles was saying that he got kicked out of college or something for hockey fights. You mentioned that you played rugby. Did you also play hockey growing up?
I learned to skate before I could walk, to be honest. So I played hockey, but I was only, in the Pee Wee division. Like I was up until I was like, 12 and stuff. And so I ended up when I went to high school, I ended up becoming a state champion in wrestling, which obviously helps a little more with MMA. And then I think I was the first two-time captain of my high school's history. So that was leadership was always big to me. And then in college, I was a three-time captain president of my rugby team, which was also the first time that ever happened. So like leadership was big for me. And yeah, I was a select side all-star starter for rugby as well. And so I didn't even know what rugby was before I got to college. And within like, a couple of years, I was like killing it. So yeah, it was a vicious sport. But I would get in a lot of fights in rugby, to be honest. I got ejected from quite a lot of matches, and I'm like, that guy has no idea who he just tried to fight. In my mind, I would always think that, like, he has no idea he just tried to fight a future UFC fighter. But one day he'll look back and be like, good thing I didn't, that my buddies held me back.
That's awesome, Lucas. Well, I think
Yeah.
that's all the questions I had for you, man. I just want to thank you again for the time ahead of this 5 week, man. Is there anything that you want to say to the fans out there watching?
Yeah, man, you guys will see a really vicious new version of me every time you see me fight. And, any opponents out there, when you try to step up to fight me, you're not just fighting another athlete, you're fighting, a monster that you don't really fully understand. So, shout out to Chucky's Fight, the family charity that works to help prevent substance abuse in the New England area.